Alpha 1, take 1, roll it.
Welcome to Alpha Innovations.
Hi, I'm Justin with Alpha Innovations, and today I'm going to walk you through installing one of our switch panels. Today I'll be using our 2026 Polaris Ranger 1500, but this would be pretty similar installation on any side-by-side. So in our kit here, what's included, you're going to have a circuit breaker. We'll have our main control board where we'll make our connections to our accessories, and you'll have a switch panel to go up on front of your dash for all the controls, and then the wiring that goes along with that, and I'll walk you through each step of how that goes together. Our first step is we want to find a good location to mount our switch assembly, and looking at this vehicle and what options we have, I've decided we're going to mount to the front of this battery cover. Wherever you mount yours, you'll want to check the back side and make sure that you have access to secure it without interfering with anything. So before we start with working on anything electrical on this vehicle, we want to unhook the battery. So I'm going to use a 10mm socket and disconnect the negative battery post. Just make sure it's out of the way so that it's not going to move over and make a connection while we're working today. I've found a location to mount my switch assembly, which has also left me enough room. I'm going to mount my circuit breaker right above that. We want to keep this as close to the battery as possible so that our circuit breaker protects us from any shorts or anything like that. So I will drill holes, and I'm going to be using a 1/4-inch bit, and I found some M6 hardware that I'm going to use to attach both of these to this battery cover. So I've got my switch panel and my circuit breaker mounted on the battery cover. Now, using a step bit, I'm going to drill a 7/8" hole in the top, and I'm going to add a grommet to protect my wires, so we will have power cables running from the battery through the hole connecting to our circuit breaker and our switch panel. So now I'm going to connect my positive and negative leads from my battery. My positive is going to go through my circuit breaker before hitting the switch panel, and the negative will go directly to the switch panel. Your negative attaches in the middle of the box, and the positive is over on this corner. So our switch panel kit includes 3 cables. Your negative cable, or your black cable, will go from the negative terminal of your battery to the center post on your switch panel. The longer of the red cables will go from your positive battery terminal to your circuit breaker, and then your shorter red cable is going to make the connection from your circuit breaker to the terminal in the corner of your switch panel to supply power. As you can see, I've now got my switch panel mounted and my cables routed for power. Just when you route your cables, make sure that you leave plenty of slack so that we can make our connections to our battery and still attach and remove our cover if we need to. And just keep an eye and make sure nothing's pinched or rubbing against metal or anything like that that could cause an issue in the future. I now have our 3-pin connector. I've made the connection in our switch panel, routed back through our grommet behind this plastic panel and to the area where our fuse box is located. I've capped off the white and the yellow wires, as I mentioned, because we're not going to use those today. The red wire we now need to tap into a keyed fuse on this vehicle using the included fuse tap. So you want to take a voltmeter and find a fuse that is powered when the ignition is turned on and loses power when the ignition is killed. And in our case, this 7.5 amp fuse is keyed on, so we're going to remove that. It will go into the lower slot closer to the blades on the fuse tap. In our new fuse, we're also going to use a 7.5, and the top slot is going to supply our key on power signal to our switch panel. We've now made the connection from our fuse tap to the red wire on our harness. We've added some heat shrink to protect our connection. So now we will reinstall the cover to our fuse box. I will note that we've had to add a slot to this cover so that this wire has a place to exit. Now we can hide these wires behind the panel and reinstall our cover. Next, we're going to work on mounting our control panel. So in your kit, pull out your control panel. You want the mounting bracket with the 2 rectangle cutouts and the 4 button head Phillips screws we're going to use to attach that. Now we're going to find the proper mounting location for our switch panel. Today we're going to mount it up in this corner, out of our line of sight yet easy to reach. And we have this bar that we can mount to. You want to make sure there's nothing behind. Close your windshield if you have a windshield and make sure that a nut on the back side will not interfere. I've marked my holes. I've loosely attached our second half of this bracket for this test fit. At this point I will remove this, drill these holes and bolt the back of my bracket to the frame. Then we will reattach our switch panel to our bracket. I've now bolted the back piece of our bracket to our frame, made sure that our windshield closes and opens with no issues on the back side. So now I'm going to take my switch panel. I'm going to take my Allen socket screw that's included in our kit. I've added a dot of blue Loctite to each one of these, and I'm going to reattach the switch panel. Now we're going to retrieve the 4-pin wiring harness that we had earlier. We're going to align the spline and make this connection with our control panel. And the next step is going to be to route this wire back to our switch panel near our battery. So if you have a headliner, you'll want to pull that and run your wire above it. If you do not have a headliner, you can typically just zip tie to the frame or whatever looks best for your application. Now that our switch panel is installed, any accessories you add, such as lighting or fans, etc., you will just run your wire to this control box and mount your positive and negative for each accessory. You want to note that your 5-amp fuses are switches 1 and 2. Then you go 3, 4, all the way through switch 8. So that's going to correlate to the configuration on your touch panel up front. So you may want all of your lights on switches 1 through 4 if that's how many accessories you have. You can change the location of each fuse if you need to handle the load of a circuit differently. If you need more than 5 amps on these first 2 circuits, you just cannot add more draw to the panel than what it's rated for from the factory. So the last step we have to do is to reattach our negative battery terminal and secure that so that we can test our new switch panel. So we finished up our wiring and now it's time to try out our switch panel.
Alpha 1, take 1, roll it.